Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy that you could join me today for a Sunday school lesson. We'll be continuing in our lesson plan that Mr. Larry started talking about last week. He did a great job explaining leprosy and being clean or unclean and what that meant. And today we'll talk our lesson from 2 Kings verse 7, or 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 11, and we'll learn about four lepers who did the right thing. And we'll just go ahead and get into the lesson, and I'll start reading here. 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 and 4. Now there were 4 men with leprosy at the entrance of the city gate. They said to each other, "Why stay here until we die? If we say we'll go into the city, the famine is there and we will die. If we stay here, we will die. So let's go over to the camp of the Arameans and surrender. If they spare us, we live, and if they kill us, then we will die." All right, that'll take us to our discussion points. And if we think about our discussion points, how do you think that the lepers felt? Remember what Mr. Larry had told us last week about being unclean, and that they were kept apart from the people that they weren't allowed to go inside the city. In fact, it was even difficult for them to earn a living as beggars, because people were afraid that even if they got breathed on by a leper, that they may contract leprosy. So, how do you think that the lepers felt? I mean, I think that they were desperate. It says that they have 3 choices, and there was a chance in all 3 of those choices that they would die if they stayed where they were outside the city. They had no food or anything, and they were going to die. If they went inside the city, well, the famine was there, and they really weren't allowed to go inside the city. So their 3rd choice was to go to the camp of their enemy, the Arameans, and surrender, and hope that the Arameans would take them captive, maybe make them slaves, but not kill them. And they realized also that there was the possibility that the Arameans would kill them also. So it's a pretty desperate situation that they're in. So let's see what they decide to do here. At dusk, they got up and went to the camp of the Arameans. When they reached the edge of the camp, no one was there. For the Lord had caused the Arameans to hear the sound of the chariots and horses and a great army. So they said to one another, "Look, the king of Israel has hired Hittite and Egyptian kings to attack us." So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents, their horses, and their donkeys. They left the camp as it was and ran for their lives. All right, let's have a little more discussion here. What did the lepers decide to do? Well, they took a chance and they went to the Aramean camp. And what did they find when they got there? The Arameans had fled the camp, and they left everything behind. So they left their horses and donkeys and their gold and silver and money and food and drink and everything that they had. They ran, because God had put into the Arameans' heads that there was something to fear, and they thought that they were being attacked. So they fled from the camp and left everything that they had. So it sounds like this might work out for the lepers. Let's see what happens. 2 Kings 7, 5 through 7. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp. They entered one of the tents, and they ate and drank. Then they took silver, gold, and clothes and went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent, took some of the things from it, and hid them also. Then they said to each other, "What we're doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let's go at once and report it to the royal palace." So they went and called out to the city gatekeepers and told them, "We We went into the Aramaean camp, and no one was there, not a sound of anyone, only tethered horses and donkeys, and the tents left just as they were. The gatekeepers shouted the news, and it was reported to the palace. All right, our final discussion here. What did the lepers do when they found no one at the camp? I mean, they walked into a camp and they found everything that they needed: food, drink, money, clothes, horses, cattle, donkeys, everything that they possibly needed. So what did they do? Well, they ate and drank, and they took some of the things and they hid them for later, so that they would have some money, and that they would have some food and some clothing and things like that. Things that were certainly difficult for them to find, because again, they were considered unclean, and they weren't allowed into the city, and people were afraid of them, to be honest. So did they keep the bounty to themselves? It says that they found all of those things. So what did they do with when they found the bounty? Did they just say, "Hey, we're going to hide all of this stuff away and not tell anybody about it, and it'll be our secret"? No, that's not what they did. They realized that what they were doing was wrong, and they went back to the city, and they shared the good news. And it was good news, because remember that, as we read, there was famine in the city. So people were dying inside the city. They didn't have any food or drink or anything like that. So these lepers shared the good news, and that's a lesson for us also, that God provides. God provided for the city by chasing away the Aramaeans, and leaving all of their possessions in the camp. And the lepers went to find this, and they could have not told anybody about it, and taken it and hid, or they could have just stayed there in the camp probably. But they realized that was not the right thing. That was not the right thing to do. And just like when God has saved us from our sins and does things for us, we shouldn't keep that inside and keep it only for ourselves and not tell anyone. We should also share the good news, just like the lepers did. So I hope you enjoyed our lesson this week. Had a note from Mr. Larry. He's up in West Virginia. He said it's hot up there, and he's having a good time, and he'll be back next week to complete our lesson. So until then, I just want you guys to remember that we at Grace United Methodist Church, we love you. I love you. God and Jesus love you, and hope that you have a great week. And I look forward to talking to you soon.